Welcome to this week's episode of Jonathan on Money. This is episode number 158. Well, welcome back, everyone. Hope everyone is absolutely living the dream. Speaking of living the dream, as a financial advisor, people like to come up to me and share their financial stories, whether it's in synagogue, while I'm walking around town, or picking up my kids from school. In fact, the other week, someone came to me to share a story about he was vacationing with another couple and the other couple mentioned how they got a great rate on a HELOC to pay for their trip. For those who don't know, a HELOC or a home equity line of credit is a way to borrow money which is secured by your home's equity, allow you to borrow, repay, and borrow again up to a set limit during a draw period. Essentially, it acts like a credit card with typically lower variable interest rates. Despite its flexibility, it's not recommended to borrow funds to spend on discretionary items. And I'm not surprised by this story. Borrowing to finance one's lifestyle happens all the time. It's a very American mindset, but here's the deal. Borrowing money to inflate your lifestyle, which includes going on vacation, is a poor decision. Tone down where you go on vacation or have a staycation instead. Borrowing money for this purpose is an imprudent decision that often leads to derailing your finances. And obviously, as I hear more juicy financial stories, I'll be sure to share them with my tens of thousands of listeners around the globe. In other news, don't forget to get my book, D is for Diversification, the ABCs of Personal Finance, which is now available on Amazon or at jonathanonmoney.com. And buying this book is a wonderful way to support this podcast. And finally, before jumping into this week's episode, I'd like to share that my upcoming live webinar series will begin this Thursday, April 30th at 8:30 a.m., featuring Brian Bolduzzi and Lisa Presser, both from Fager, Dricker, Biddle, and Reith LLP, based in both Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and Princeton, New Jersey. And Brian and Lisa are going to be discussing qualified charitable distributions, rules, opportunities, and tax traps for 2026 and beyond. And I'll be sure to include the registration information in the show notes to this episode. Okay, now for today's agenda. My talking points this week are going to discuss inherited real estate with siblings, what to do when you want to sell and they don't. Our quote this week is from Seneca on luck. And I'll spend the last half of the episode answering listener questions, including how to afford a home in the five towns. And finally, we'll end with an actual idea to implement to your investing life, where we're going to discuss spending on big ticket items leading up to retirement. And with that, let's jump into this week's talking points. So I received the following question from a client a few months ago, and it's a situation that comes up pretty frequently. And it goes like this. My siblings and I inherited a multi-family property in Brooklyn. I don't want to be in the real estate business, and I certainly don't want to be in the business with my siblings. They, however, believe it's an excellent asset and with strong income and long-term upside. How should I handle this? So the situation is more common than many people realize, particularly in communities where real estate has long been a primary vehicle for building wealth. Brooklyn multifamily properties in particular have generated substantial value over the decades. However, past performance does not guarantee future returns. Real estate is cyclical, subject to regulatory shifts, and can carry meaningful risk. When siblings inherit property together, the financial complexities are often compounded by the challenges of joint family ownership. Your instinct to step back is entirely reasonable. Real estate is illiquid and concentrated in a single market, and comes with tenant concerns, changing laws, property taxes, ongoing maintenance, and unexpected capital expenses. Even under ideal conditions, managing property requires time, expertise, and patience. Once family dynamics enter the picture, routine business decisions can quickly become emotional, and disagreements that might otherwise be manageable can strain relationships. Since we value shell and buy it, preserving family harmony is just as important as the financial aspects of the situation. Sometimes the best financial decision is the one that protects relationships. Here are several practical approaches for you to consider. And the first is a fair market buyout. If your siblings feel strongly about holding the property, the cleanest solution is for them to buy out your share at a fair market value. I suggest hiring a qualified independent appraiser to determine the property's value. Having clarity around valuation removes emotion from the equation and turns the conversation into a business discussion rather than a family argument. If there is disagreement about which appraiser to use, consider hiring two and averaging the results. The incremental cost is small compared to the long-term cost of resentment. Paying fair market value based on a credible appraisal is typical, a reasonable and equitable outcome. You receive liquidity and closure while they retain an asset in which they believe deeply. Two, accepting a modest discount for peace of mind. If your siblings are unwilling or unable to pay full market value, you may consider accepting a modest discount in exchange for a clean exit. This is not weakness, it's just pragmatism. Not every financial decision is about squeezing out the last dollar of theoretical return. Sensible investing is about aligning assets with your goals, risk tolerance, and temperament. If you do not want to manage real estate, then removing yourself from the situation may be worth more than the incremental dollars you leave on the table. Family disputes over money can linger for decades. A discounted buyout that preserves relationships can be a wise investment in long-term family unity. Of course, any agreed upon discount should be transparent and based on a clearly defined percentage of appraised value so that all parties feel treated fairly. Number three is structured installment buyout. If liquidity is the issue, and sometimes it is, a structured buyout may work. Your siblings could purchase your share over time through a promissory note with defined interest and payment terms. This allows them to retain ownership while providing you with predictable payment and an eventual exit. The terms should be documented formally by a competent attorney to avoid misunderstandings. Clear expectations around payment schedules, default provisions, and investment rates prevent future tension. Number four is formalizing governance. If for any reason you remain involved temporarily, insist on structure. Placing the property into an LLC with a detailed operating agreement can establish a clear appraisal process, buy-sell provisions, decision-making authority, capital call rules, rights of first refusal. Without structure, informal family arrangements often unravel when unexpected repairs or disagreements arise. And the larger lesson here is to plan before it's too late. Well, this advice addresses your current dilemma. The broader lesson is about advanced planning. Parents can often prevent these conflicts entirely through thoughtful estate planning and open communication during their lifetimes. Difficult conversations are far easier when everyone is calm and healthy. If one child wants real estate and another prefers liquidity, the objective should be to equalize value without forcing joint ownership. The cleanest solution is to leave the property to the interested heir and often the others with liquid assets such as cash, brokerage accounts, or life insurance proceeds. For estates heavily concentrated in real estate, life insurance can be a powerful tool to create liquidity at death. It provides immediate cash to heirs who do not want property, avoiding forced sales and resentful co ownership. In some situations, parents may transfer property during their lifetime to the child who wants it while equalizing other children with different assets. However, this requires careful tax analysis. Lifetime transfers do not receive a step up in basis, which only occurs when transferred at death, potentially creating significant capital gains exposure. Competent estate planning counsel is essential in considering this option. Finally, with the theme of this podcast, I'd like to share a Torah perspective on wealth and family. In Jewish tradition, wealth is a bracha, but only if it enhances rather than fractures family relationships. Chazal repeatedly emphasized the importance of peace among siblings. No property, no matter how prime the Brooklyn location, is worth permanent division within a family. Ultimately, you're not obligated to become a landlord simply because you inherited property. Inheritance is a gift, not a mandate to enter a business that does not suit you. If exiting allows you to maintain peace and invest in a manner aligned with your own financial plan, that may be the wisest path. If your siblings genuinely believe in the property's long-term prospects, let them carry on that vision along with the responsibilities and risks that accompany it. And my bracha to the questioner and anyone who's listening to this is that the matter should resolve smoothly, speedily, in a way that preserves both financial well-being and family harmony. May you and your siblings continue to share Simchas together with this challenge behind you. Okay, those are the talking points this week. As a reminder, you can be notified of all my recent articles, webinars, and all the work I put out by subscribing to my free monthly newsletter at parkbridgewealth.com/newsletter. This week's quote is from Seneca. For those who don't know, Seneca was a Roman Stoic philosopher, statesman, and playwright. He served as an advisor to Emperor Nero, wrote extensively on ethics, virtue, and resilience, and advocated self-control and reason. Accused of conspiracy, he was ordered to commit suicide in 65 CE, becoming a lasting symbol of Stoic philosophy. And Seneca once said, "Luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity." And this quote reframes success not as random luck, but as an outcome of preparation meeting opportunity. What often appears to be chance is more accurately the result of sustained efforts, skill development, and readiness over time. Individuals who consistently invest in themselves, anticipate possibilities, and stay engaged are far more likely to recognize and capitalize on favorable moments when they arise. And this mindset encourages a shift from passivity to agency. Rather than waiting for circumstances to improve, it emphasizes building the capabilities and awareness needed to act when opportunity presents itself. In doing so, it transforms luck into something more predictable and attainable. Success becomes less about external forces and more about internal behavior, discipline, and positioning. And in the world of investing and financial planning, this principle is especially relevant. Long term success rarely comes from trying to time markets or chasing trends. Instead, it is driven by proactive efforts like consistent saving, thoughtful asset allocation, discipline, rebalancing, and maintaining liquidity to act when opportunities arise. Investors who are prepared both financially and psychologically are better positioned to take advantage of market spikes, tax planning windows, and compounding over time. In this context, preparation is not just prudent, it is the primary driver of what many perceive as financial luck. And if you're looking to build and sustain your wealth, prepare by taking the right steps today. And you'll find that after many years of sticking to these principles and good habits, you'll be blessed with a lot of financial luck. Okay, now let's jump into this week's financial questions. And if you do have a question, feel free to submit it to me, and it may be answered in a future episode. Okay, first question. I'm wondering if I will ever be able to buy a home in the five towns. I know you're going to suggest looking outside the five towns, but let's face it, if everyone wants to be here, all the Jewish amenities are here. I see no reason in moving somewhere else in Long Island where I'll have to come to the five towns constantly. So, how do I afford a home here when prices are very high and it's impossible to save money with all my from lifestyle expenses? Let me start by telling you a tale. Well, it's not really a tale, but just a point of note. Growing up in New Jersey, I never even heard of the five towns. This is the truth. Sure, I knew people that lived in Long Island, or on Long Island, as I later learned was the correct term phraseology, but I don't remember ever going there, and don't remember hearing the phrase five towns, or all the stereotypes that go with it, until I went to Israel for the year. So, first of all, not everyone wants to live there, and many people can live their whole life in a firm community and not even know that the five towns exist. Sorry to burst your bubble, not actually sorry. You probably need to get out there more. If you are dead set on buying a house in that area but can't afford it, then here's a suggestion. Stop spending all your money trying to maintain appearances and keeping up with the Joneses and save it instead. Assuming you heed this advice and make a decent wage, then at some point you'll be able to afford your dream mansion on a 5 by 100 square feet of land, tons of congestion, Jews with attitude, and all its other glory. How do you stay on top of the latest news around the world so you can position your clients' portfolios appropriately? I try various different sites and news services, but it's overwhelming. The walls of my office are made up entirely of screens tracking news and markets around the world. Even my bathroom is lined with screens, so I'm always consuming information. After all, how can I manage money if I don't know where the Japanese yen is trading during all hours of the day? I'm just joking. Chuckle, chuckle. The trick isn't keeping track of all the latest news. It's being able to ignore 99.9% of it. Let's face it, most of the news out there is manufactured nonsense or scary stuff that doesn't apply to you or your money. Sure, Putin is a jerk, but unless he decides to nuke America, he isn't impacting your life. Sure, I get angry when I hear about the Chinese genocide of the Uyghurs, which I don't hear about too often because it doesn't involve Israel or the Jewish people, so most people don't care. But that isn't going to impact my portfolio. Yeah, the tensions in Washington is unfortunate, but how's that going to impact my nest egg in retirement? Answer: it won't. Stay focused on things that actually matter, like your time horizon, goals, savings rate, and investing in a normally structured portfolio. Everything else is just noise. Next question. I work in a field which requires me to look good. My clients and my coworkers expect that. How would you suggest I dress to impress without breaking the bank? So, in the past 2 decades, I went shopping for new pants once. I still wear t shirts from high school. Most of my recently acquired t shirts were given to me for free at conferences. My Yom Kippur and Tisha B'Av shoes are from ninth grade. Not to get too personal, but I'm about to. I legit don't throw out my underwear until they're full of holes. I continue to wear my undershirts with holes in them until my wife takes them away secretly and throws them in the trash. In short, I'm not the best person to ask for fashion advice from. I'm also a living testament to the fact that one can live a financially prudent lifestyle and look borderline homeless. You'll do great even if you buy your clothes from Walmart. Wishing you and your wardrobe much mazel. Next question. There's a lot of talk on the accumulation stage of retirement planning. Do you have any advice on the decumulation phase where I need to take out money? I'm 65, so I plan to start withdrawing funds within the next few years. Yeah, this is a great question. The decumulation phase of retirement planning is more nuanced than the accumulation phase. You need to factor in many things. This includes when to claim Social Security. If you have a spouse, this may factor in when to claim. You also need to mitigate your portfolio from sequence of returns risk, which can derail your finances if not handled correctly. Healthcare costs, housing, and long-term care needs all factor into the equation, as does where you decide to live. If you have legacy planning goals and are philanthropic, then this will also play into the mix. There's also withdrawal hierarchy, depending on the tax status of each of the accounts you're withdrawing from. If you have a form of guaranteed income beyond Social Security, that will impact the structure of your portfolio. Should you incorporate a guaranteed form of income, and what percentage of your assets will it be? There are also family dynamics, behavioral issues, and various other aspects that come into play. If you haven't considered the aforementioned considerations or concerns, or you're bewildered by what I just mentioned, I would suggest hiring someone to help you. One misstep can really screw up your plans for retirement. Next question. I was speaking to a guy in my community who told me he's been earning 18% a year in ETFs. How do I do this to grow my money at that rate? Oh boy. So an ETF is a type of investment product. They're not an investment in and of themselves, meaning it depends what the ETF is investing in. You can have ETFs that invest in the energy sector, others that invest in foreign stocks, some investment in bonds, while others are diversified in a variety of asset classes. There are literally many thousands or tens of thousands of ETFs. Next, this guy isn't earning 18% a year. If he did, then he did it once or twice, and it was because he either A, got lucky, or B, is concentrated in one area of the market and taking way too much risk, which will ultimately lead him to blow himself up, or C, both of these. My recommendation is to earn 18% a year is to participate in a Ponzi scheme. Ultimately, you'll get caught and end up in jail or just lose your shirt, but it is a way to have fun and brag to your friends while it lasts. Interestingly, many people are under the false assumption that you need extremely high returns to be rich or to achieve your goals. You don't need to do that. In fact, reaching for big returns will likely lead to big mistakes and set you back years financially. Allow me, if I may, to quote Tom Brady, whom I've quoted before, and he said the following: To be successful at anything, the truth is you don't need to be special. You just need to be what most people aren't: consistent, determined, and willing to work for it. This is true with investing. Work hard at your job, make money, be disciplined about investing in boring ways, watch small incremental progress over time, and in a few decades, with a lot of patience and consistency, you'll be a multimillionaire. Anyone who claims there's another way to wealth is a charlatan, ignoramus, or both, and you should run the other way. Okay, that's it for financial questions this week. And by the way, if you have a more involved personal finance situation, feel free to reach out directly to me, and perhaps my team and I can help you. The best way to get a hold of me is via email at jonathan@parkbridgewealth.com. And finally, I'd like to end with a timely and actionable idea that listeners can implement to their financial lives. Today's timely idea is regarding retirement readiness. Before handing in your resignation letter, it's important to be sure to tackle all known big ticket expenses before you retire. These may include home repairs, car replacements, or lifestyle upgrades, so you can pay for them from income while you're working rather than drawing down your portfolio early. Paying large expenses once retired will lead to unneeded stress on your financial assets, cause emotional stress which will impact your well-being, and may lead you to run out of money sooner than anticipated. And with that, it's a wrap for this week's show. Any comments or questions, feel free to reach out directly to me via email. I love hearing from my listeners. And finally, the secret to financial success is no secret at all. It's to spend less than you make, invest the difference prudently, and ignore all the noise. See you next time on Jonathan on Money.